Hey, how you folks doing? It's a very humid post-thunderstorm afternoon here in the coming up to the end of July. Which, I mean, what else is new? What else can you really expect? So, with this season, how things have been going, just been really rainy and mushy and gross and swampy. But we're making the best of it. Right in front of me is a massive, expansive field filled primarily with two flowers, but there's some other stuff interspersed here. This yellow aster in front of us on the right is oh God, is it? Well, helianthoides. It's a false sunflower, not helianthemum. Hang on one second. I can confirm. I know what it is. I just forget. Heliopsis. Heliopsis helianthoides. False sunflower there on the right. On the left, you get a nice, real nice member of the mint family, Lamiaceae. You have some wild bergamot. You have Monarda fisulosa, a plant that, despite being relatively common and pretty widespread, I just never really bothered to check out last year. Neither of these plants are actually why I'm here. I'm gonna do a quick little cool video on this other plant that's growing around the corner from me, Chamaecrista fascicularis, Chamaecrista, the partridge tree. I'm just forgetting my scientific name. I'm forgetting my scientific names today. Rest assured, we'll sort ourselves out here. We'll get down into it because the family Fabaceae, which is one I feel like I really didn't give a fair shake to last year. It's a very interesting and very widespread, very large family, as is Ericaceae, as are the two individuals in front of us, Asteraceae for the false sunflower and Lamiaceae for the bergamot. It's worth looking into. Yeah, fasciculata. I got the epithet right. So we're going to talk a little bit about a few of the subfamilies. I'll get into it a bit. But before we do that, why don't we just get warmed up? We'll talk a little bit about these two guys. So get my camera there. Get into a good position for you to show what's going on here. So, yeah, this one's seen better days. Oh, this one's perfect. So this is Heliopsis helianthoides, typical aster morphology. See those little brown things sticking out the top? Those are those anther tubes. Got to remember, Asteraceae typically does what is known as secondary pollen presentation. So those 5 anthers are fused into a tube, and then the pistil shoots up through it, and you have your pollen, which is, the pollen is actually being deposited on the inside of these little tubes. It's being deposited on the female part of the flower, and then presented in a much more conserved method. Always got to look at the phyllaries. The lighting here is not terribly good, but then again, the phyllaries on this are not terribly interesting or showy. Lots of dead aphids on it. It just poured, I guess, seconds before I pulled up to the spot. I'll show you the leaves. Pretty large leaves, 5 to 6 inches long, nice long petiole. Opposite leaves, always worth note on a sunflower, nice smooth stems. These things, you really got to pay attention. Every single thing on an aster is worth taking into account. It was worth taking into account when you're trying to, get a positive ID on it. Of course, the opposite leaved asters are not, there's not as many of them as there are alternate leaved asters. If you kind of have your work a little bit easier if you're talking about opposite and world leaved asters, but fairly large. Almost kind of remind me in shape of like a eutrochium, which is of course also an aster, just in a different subfamily, and rough on the surface of the leaf. Diagnostic for the species. And I mean, they're getting pretty big. I mean, my guide says these things only get to be about 4 to 5 feet tall. I'm 5'7". I'm a short guy, and these are kind of dwarfing me. These are, getting up near 6, maybe even 7, 6.5 feet maybe. But anyway, I actually probably shouldn't even spend too much time on this. This technically is not even native to the native to New England, native to the Northeast. This is a species that's native to much of central and southeastern United States. But I'm not gonna shit on the guy just for being kind of out of place here in New England. It's not really invasive per se. It's listed as an invasive in my book, but I'm gonna go ahead and guess that this, much like honey locust, which we'll talk about in a little bit here, is one of these sort of, can you call it invasive? Debatable. Would you call it aggressive? Okay, absolutely, it's an aggressive species. Might you want to control for it? Sure, but you know, it's not exactly, it's obviously doing well here, but as we'll see from this plant next to us, it's not really forming a monoculture. There's other stuff, plenty of other stuff interspersed in this field doing well. Specifically, this next plant that I would love to talk to you about, this is Monarda fisulosa, also rocking opposite leaves. However, that is much more typical for the family this guy's in, which is Fabaceae, I'm sorry, not Fabaceae, Lamiaceae, the mint family. And I mean, oh, this just smells fantastic. Not like super sweet and flowery, but let me see if we get better lighting if we do it like this. Yeah, that's going to be a lot better, I'm guessing. Not super sweet and flowery, but, you know, woodsy, racy, dare I say masculine. Almost reminding me, just the structure of the flowers of a, what am I trying to say here? The structure of the flowers is almost reminding me of a blank. What's the genus? Lobelia. Of course, no relation to lobelias at all. Completely different order. Just merely a superficial similarity. Many uses as an herb. You know, I got bergamot scented soap after all. And yeah, just kind of actually weirdly similar leaves. Of course, leaf morphology. Just when you're talking as plain as what these are, rarely means anything. I'm going to take this off for a second. Taking up too much time talking about not even what I wanted to talk about today. Yeah, that's going to look a lot better. So Monarda fisulosa. I am hesitant to call what these little inflorescent structures are. I'm hesitant to call these a verticil aster because I'm not sure if they are. I think a verticil aster needs to be stalked. You know what I mean? It would be going up, but these are terminal. The inflorescences. Thing smells amazing. I got the resins all over my hand. Let's cut this off here and let's go look at some, let's go look at Chamaecrista fasciculata, the plant I actually came out here for. We're going to look at Desmodium. We're going to look at Apios americana, just some cool Fabids and cool Fabaceae. And I mean, this is a better, yeah, there you go, that's the habitat I'm dealing with. As you can see, plenty of that false sunflower, plenty of that Heliopsis, but you know, the Monarda's doing well. You got some other invasive linea, what is this, Linea vulgaris, the bastard toadflax here, and then the bumblebees everywhere. So without further ado, let's go look at a couple peas and probably get out of here because I didn't have a oh yeah, there he goes. Yeah, bees and hummingbirds love these things, this bergamot. That's nice. Yeah, we're gonna make this probably as quick as we can. We're gonna get out of here. So you come over this side of the field, the bergamot is doing, you know, doing much better. Bergamot, I don't care. Is doing much better than the Heliopsis. So get Heliopsis back there. That's where we were. And then over here, and then you'll see we'll go further down, and there's one of the pea species that I want to show you is dominating down over here in this corner. But before we do that, let's check out this cool, really cool pea, which is a bit different than your average pea. So what we're looking at here, this is what I was just talking about. I'll get the flowers in focus for you. This is Chamaecrista fasciculata. This is a partridge pea. So now, as I was kind of hinting to, and just follow along. Don't try this. I'll make this as quick and painless as possible. So, with a lot of these larger families, Ericaceae, Asteraceae, Fabaceae, Lamiaceae, Orchidaceae, you're typically dealing not only with that family level of taxon, they're typically split up into subfamilies. Some subfamilies can be huge. I mean, hell, there are genuses out there that are bigger than some families. Some families that, it doesn't matter. I'm getting away from myself. So, the pea family has quite a few, Fabaceae, pea family Fabaceae, that you don't really need to worry about, okay? I'm going to take this, move this back a little bit. So the pea family has quite a few you don't really need to worry about. You know, there are three that are typically thought of as being the main, you know, the main three families. I think they were the original three families. Of course, it's been broken up a bit. You had Faboideae, or Papilionoideae, which mean the same thing. Papilionaceous and Fabaceae mean the same thing. It's the name for the typical morphology of a pea flower. You have what were the species, you know, they're known as acacias and mesquites. You have mimosoideae, which they look like little pom-poms. We don't have any, to my knowledge, native to the Northeast. There's quite a few down in the desert, down in Texas. Ebony, I believe, is a mimosoid pea. I'll put up an example of like what you know, a mesquite and an ebony flower look like right about here, just so you get an idea. Silk tree might get planted out up here. I'm not sure. I know it gets planted out south of here. That's a common non-native one that people see. And then and a lot of the mimosas are trees. I think there's exceptions to that. And then what we're looking at here, which is Cisalpinioideae, a Cisalpine, you know, Cisalpine pea. Now, I would normally stop there, but there's a very, very, very famous tree, very popular ornamental that's native to the region called Cercis canadensis, which is in the subfamily Cercidoideae, which is not one of these, you know, main larger three ones. And the flowers on that look, you know, papilionaceous, look fabaceous anyway. They just look like your traditional pea flower. So that one's not really, and it's a small subfamily. But interesting, I did not know until I was kind of doing research for this episode that redbud, if you've ever heard of redbud, that's Cercis canadensis, was in its own subfamily, not on its own, but in its, you know, it's the namesake genus of that subfamily Cercidoideae. So anyway, this right here is Chamaecrista fasciculata, which I've already said, Cisalpinioideae subfamily, which I've already said. And what makes this guy unique is, well, I mean, those flowers, they just don't really look anything like a pea flower now, do they? Now, your typical morphology for pea family, your typical synapomorphies, as we can say, would include, you know, the traditional banner wings and keel, papilionaceous, which I mean looks like which I think means looking like a butterfly, papilionaceous flowers, and heavily divided leaves. We definitely have those heavily divided leaves right here. Sensitive pea is in the same genus as this, which is Chamaecrista nictitans. The flowers are a bit smaller, and the leaves, which I mean, I guess this species is supposed to do it too. The leaves exhibit thigmonasty, and they'll fold up when you know, they'll fold up when they kind of get brushed. But I'm doing it to this one right now. It's not exhibiting that behavior. So anyway, let me get in here. I probably should have taken a look at this thing before, just to figure out what I'm doing, because these things, these Cisalpine flowers, and while I'm kind of focusing, I'll tell you this too. So we really only have, in the Cisalpine subfamily, I think 4 native plants. You have 2 species of Chamaecrista, which is this one, fasciculata, and then nictitans, that just talked about. And then we have 2 species of senna. Sennas are pretty popular ornamentals. I think they get planted out, you know, often enough. But and then Gladitsia, which is a honey locust, is kind of invasive, but they're native to the U.S., just really, really aggressive, and they're kind of a pest, you know, weedy tree, and definitely invasive in other parts of the world. So let's take a look at what's going on here. I probably could have done this before. So the anthers on this guy are kind of withered, actually. I don't know. Let's go see if we can find a better example, actually. Okay, sorry about that. Here's one just in a better presentation. So, easier to focus anyway. So, numerous little anthers in there. I believe these are porous anthers. Got a buzz on them. A little bit of red there in the middle. See that there? Okay. Just interesting anther morphology. Here's the stigma, if you can see that. This little green thing sticking out right about here. Okay, and then one other thing I didn't mention with these guys have the extra floral nectaries. I don't know if you can see that really well, but on the end of this leaf here, the petiole, it's a little nectar gland that these guys have. I believe the intent is to attract ants to kind of hang out on them and kick off. Oh yeah, I'm looking around right now. As soon as I said that, I could see the ants on the things. Where'd he go? Here's a little bastard right there. Where is he? You see him? hanging out there. So you get the ants to come hang out, acting like bouncers, and I guess a lot of sessile pinioideae peas do this. So just weird little cool anatomical quirks, and especially this genus Camecrista have. They're kind of dominating this low edge of the field here. Don't really seem to be minding the shade too much. But, I mean, this is my first time coming across this one, so it's oftentimes difficult for me to really articulate what I mean, my first time around getting to know a plant. But anyway, I don't have to drag on too long about this one. I can talk much more at length about two of the other species that we're going to see. And I think I can cut it off here with Camecrista fasciculata. I hope you get the idea, you know what I mean? Zoom out a bit for you. And here's how these things just kind of hang out on the edge. This type of leaf, just this really, I guess you see it with vetches too. Your tufted vetch does that. A lot of the mimosas will stick to that format, But you can see, I mean, that's the same family, different subfamily, but same family as this. I think this is just Trifolium arvens. This is just rabbit foot clover, not even native, but you get the idea. It's a really cool spider web right here. Can we get it to come out? Oh, it looks a little bit worse for wear. Maybe she's not there anymore. But anyway, we'll go take a look at Desmodium canadense, and then Apios americana, and then that might be it for us today. It really is a lovely field. Yeah, okay, see, this is a species of Vicia. This is Vicia, is it Vicia viscosum? Tufted, hairy vetch or tufted vetch, whatever it is. So you can see this one rocks the traditional, papilionaceous flowers. We'll talk about a little bit more in depth in a minute. And it also has, this is Camecrista right here. It also has those much more, heavily segmented leaves. So you can almost not even tell. It's kind of funny because this is climbing up the Camecrista. But that's Vicia viscosum. I swear, it's got a cool name like that. But that's one of the vetches, as they're called. It's more of a vining pea, which I mean actually probably more familiar to people who grow peas in their garden. Of course, I'm more used to the native ones, which typically, actually, I'm talking out my ass. We're gonna go see a native vining pea in a second here. Just more of that Camecrista. God, this Bergamot is awesome. What a cool plant. I mean, I'm standing here on the edge of the field and it's just all I smell. The disturbed habitats, I mean, this looks like an old disused farm here that these people are just letting grow in the wild. Hopefully they're coming through and they're, at least chopping it back or curating it. I mean, like I said, Heliopsis is not technically native to New England, but I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe it does cause trouble. It says invasive in the book, but invasive doesn't really make sense if it's just only coming from a couple 100 miles away. It can be, don't get me wrong, it can get, things of that nature can get weedy and can get aggressive, but rarely, I shouldn't even be running my mouth. I don't really know what I'm talking about, just because I just happen to think these things are pretty cool. So let's go take a look at Desmodium. I don't want to end up eating my words about that. Okay, I am really sorry to beat you over the head with this theme of, plants encroaching, native to the U.S. but not native to New England, but being present here. However, I stand corrected. I just looked this up. Apparently, this is native to New England, but it's considered rare. Well, this is Asclepias tuberosa, and I might as well just go into the morphology. This is one of the milkweeds. This is butterfly milkweed. This is probably, the famous milkweed that everybody really, really gets a hard on for. Kind of a cool plant, unusual for milkweeds. It has alternate leaves instead of opposite leaves. Most milkweeds have opposite leaves. Most plants in the family of Fabaceae have opposite leaves. Of course, quadrifolia, which is one that makes an appearance in a video. Or is it? It doesn't matter. The four-leaved milkweed has whorled leaves. Nice orange, beautiful, traditional Asclepias flowers there. Got to remember, these things have a crazy cool, pollination strategy. Kind of similar to how an orchid does it. They do the pollinia, insects got to get its little foot in through a slit. It's going to get the pollen sac attached to it. It's going to fly away. It takes a pretty big insect to do it. I've never actually seen these growing, somewhere that wasn't just like someone's little, quote-unquote pollinator garden. Natural occurrences of this are actually a thing in New England, which I didn't know until I looked it up just a second ago. However, I'm going to guess that somebody threw a packet of like wildflower seeds out here or something to get this. I don't know if this is a natural occurrence. It is, quote, known from the county. There's another one right there. There's a couple of them around, but I wouldn't get my hopes up too high that this is like a super, you know, super interesting find. I'm going to go ahead out on a limb and guess somebody at one point threw some wildflower seed mix down here, because this is a super, if you're going to find a milkweed commercially available from like not a native plant, what am I trying to say, not a native plant nursery, it's probably going to be this species, you know. There's another one over there, and kind of coming up behind, I'm just messing with you, I knew he was here, coming up behind one of our target species, although pardon me, I'm being really sloppy today. It's almost too warm for me to give a shit. Let's look at this one. Actually, there's a whole bunch of that milkweed in here. Look, here's another one right here. Doing much better. This one looks a lot better, actually. Asclepias tuberosa. Sure as hell. Alternate leaves. Kind of weird to see that on a milkweed. I'll be perfectly honest with you. But here is a real good example of Desmodium canadens, okay? So this is what we mean when we see when we say papillinaceous flower. So these are 5 petals, and what you do is you have this top one is your banner, then you'll have 2 wings on the bottom on either side there, and then a keel, which is the bottom and the middle. So 2 fused petals up top, 2 petals on the side, and then 1 on the bottom, although the bottom petal's kind of in between the wings. It's kind of up in the middle, and then you can see down on there those reproductive bits. Yeah. Show you the leaves real quick. And this one, oh, it's starting to thunder again. I'm gonna have to get out of here. This one, unlike the Chamaecrista, but just like clover, has a tri-pinnate leaf. Very rough, very coarse, like a cat tongue. So, this one is also, you know, alternate leaves overall down the stem. And I mean, these things can get pretty big. This one's kind of bent over, but you know, 3, 4, even 5 feet tall. Some of the extraordinary ones. Some of them get pretty big. There's another cool mint I see growing over here, covered in some really wild-looking wasps. I'm gonna go see what that is. We'll check that out. Might have to skip out on Apios americana. Can always put a picture in and talk about it. The American groundnut, which is widely cultivated in Japan. But more on that if we get to go see it. Okay, so it's definitely about to thunder, so I gotta get out of here. But I just wanted to show you what I was talking about. This crazy looking, definitely a mint. I think this is just another species of Monarda, just like that. I could be wrong though, because again, mints are like fabaceae. I didn't really give them a fair shake last year. But this thing's pretty wild looking. The wasps seem to love it. Of course, you know, wasps pollinate just as much stuff as bees. Wasps perform numerous important ecological functions. But look at that, that's wild. I'll get back to you, I'll figure out what this is, I'll put it below. This might be in one of the non-native Monardas, because we certainly get that. And unlike Monarda fisulosa, these are verticillasters. So this will bloom, and then it'll keep going up the stalk. Monarda fisulosa doesn't really seem like it does that. So anyway, I don't feel like getting struck by lightning. I might cut it off here, or maybe this thing will roll through and I can show you Apios americana. But even if I can't, I'll just put up a stationary picture or something of it, and I will have a little brief explanation. That's just a cool one. That's a Fabaceae subfamily too. That's a vining one. That's a native vining Fabaceae subfamily P, and one with a kind of an interesting anthropological factoid about it. But whatever. Yeah, fuck it. A little lightning never hurt anybody. Here's what the fruits look like on Desmodium canadense. A couple other species of Desmodium, by the way, native to the region. Desmodium canadense just seems to be the most common. Hylodesmum is a closely related genera too, that I'll talk about in another video. kind of similar, likes more of the woodland habitat, and the flowers look really similar, but the overall form of the plant's a bit different. The leaves look nothing like the leaves on this, and tends to just have a little bit different of a habit about it, but same purple, you know, same little purple spike of papilionaceous flowers, and then even the fruits look pretty darn similar. Little pea pods. And the storm seemed to mostly blow over. I had to stop and show you one of my favorites, Clethra ulnifolia, man. I'm getting mobbed by bugs, but as long as they're just flies, I don't really care. I saw this back where I just came from, and I couldn't even stop because the mosquitoes were so bad. But these little flies are fine. Order is Ericales. Family's Clethraceae, a really small family. Oh, geez, a big mosquito on me. God damn. Ugh, sorry. Smells delightful. You're gonna unfortunately see it wherever, you know, mosquitoes are likely to hang out. These little flies are just sucking the sweat off me. It's kind of cool. Really interesting shape of the leaves. I don't need to talk too much at length about this one. I'm kind of getting eaten alive here, man. One of the inflorescences from last year, and a cool one. 'Cause a lot of people are starting to you know, plant these out, especially if you've got like a shady, kind of inundated backyard. Perfect plant for you. It's pretty shade tolerant, beautiful flowers, smells amazing, and it attracts a lot of, it'll attract a lot of, you know, cool bugs. And I think it'll even, you know, I don't know if the deer browse it, but it's a nice plant, worth having. In case you can't tell, I'm swiping all sorts of mosquitoes off me. This is, forgot my bug spray. That's my fault. But cool plant. Oh. I'm doing a whole plant spotlight on it, so don't worry. That will either be out by now or is already out, but I can't not stop and show you Hibiscus moscheatos or moschetos. I always say moschetos. I've heard other people say moschetos. Look at this tropical looking bastard in the you know, in the cotton family, Malvaceae. Again, I'm gonna do a whole plant spotlight on it. So don't worry. You don't have to take it all in now. But I mean, look, it's like when these fully open, you know, the ones up top too, like the ones up top, these things are like the size of my hand. Get in there. 5-lobed stigma. Look at all the anthers. So they're fused at the bottom and then they unfuse as they go up. It doesn't really matter. There's the calyx and the epicalyx. So you get your calyx, and then these little fringy things, they call that an epicalyx. Pretty typical for the pretty typical for the family Malvaceae. One of only 2 species native to New England. Of course, people grow these, you know, Malva, which are mostly native to Europe, Malva neglecta, hollyhock, you know, all this other stuff that's really popular to grow here in New England is all not native, either from the south, again, to tap into the seam again, or from Europe. God, even in bud, just a stunner. And of course, coming up with a ton of Desmodium canadensis. We're over on the other side of where we just were. I'm gonna go find this. This ground nut. But of course, I came far enough down. I was here last year. These guys are having a good year. There's a whole other patch of them down. I had already passed or a bit farther back, and then there's a really big patch of them down at the end of this trail, which I've been on many times. But that's not what we're here for. I got to show you Apios americana. And then I gotta get out of here. Sorry, we'll get there. I swear, I just keep getting distracted by all this good shit. Here's a real nice one. This is a different species of milkweed. This is Asclepias incarnata, which has the much more traditional opposite leaves. Larger overall plant. These can actually get huge. And of course, the blooms on this one are the much more typical, you know, pale pink to whitish pink. That you would expect from, you know, something like Asclepias syriaca, which is probably the most common species here, and then, you know, numerous other species tend to have this more pale, less vibrant, whatever, blah 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 color. Great plant too. Don't get me wrong. This one, of course, though, definitely native and does not get planted out nearly as often as a tuberosa or even syriaca gets planted out quite a bit these days. This one kind of just it needs to be pretty close to water. You can see down there's some water. It's still a little bit harder to grow, you know, in like your yard or something, whereas, you know, Asclepias syriaca or tuberosa would take much more readily to those conditions. Also, I mean, There's a nice little button bush down there. Actually, there's a ton of, there's an entire trail. It's kind of rimmed by button bushes. I talked about those enough last year, though. We can leave the button bush for now. Yeah, okay, finally. Here you go. We can get close to wrapping this up now. This is one of the other fabids, one of the other species in Fabaceae, one of the other peas, legumes, what have you, that I wanted to show you today. This is Apios americana. Kind of a weird looking plant overall. So you can see these are the individual flowers. Still doing the banner, the wings and the keel. Kind of leathery though. Alright, if we were to... He won't miss... Oh, they're falling off anyway. Okay, he won't miss one flower. So, here's what that looks like. Okay, let me zoom in for you. Get this in focus. So again, just to demonstrate, you know, the synapomorphy of the family, or at least of the Fabaceae subfamily. So here's your banner up top. Alright. Flip this guy over. Kind of hard to see. I wish I could. It's kind of rough, you know, it doesn't really matter. So you get your two fused petals up top that make up the banner. Alright. Here's your keel, which illustrates much more closely something I was trying to show in the Desmodium. See this thing curled up right now? That's the keel. So that's one of the petals. That's the bottom petal, hiding all the juicy reproductive bits in there. Those are the 9 fused, 1 free stamen, and then obviously a a pistil, female part. And then here are your 2 wings down at the bottom, ovaries somewhere and down in here. And again, just makes beans. Typical fruit of the family. The interesting tidbit that I was talking about, here are the leaves, which, I mean, when they're young, a lot of times they're triphid, so still compound, still doing your traditional compound thing like you expect with the pea family. This one's a vine, this one's native. So despite being Apios americana, the American groundnut, which sounds delicious, the tubers for these things are edible too, and the nuts that come off of it, or the beans, I should say, however they have them. So this grows obviously wild all over not all over the place. It grows wild in the right conditions here in the US, here in the Northeast as well. You get it down to the south. It's got a pretty wide overall range. It's cultivated as a crop in Japan, so you don't really find this readily available as a food. I mean, I'm sure the foragers, descend upon it and are really into it. But yeah, it's widely cultivated in Japan. Pretty big crop over there, actually, from what I understand. Real weird, real fascinating. I don't have too much else to say about it, other than the fact that apparently, it was a staple food for the indigenous people of the region, I'm sure, and for the other regions it's native to. They have a taste for it in Japan. I guess it tastes pretty good and it's pretty nutritious. I mean, I'm not really into the whole foraging thing, but you do you. As long as it's done ethically, there's no real problem with it. And I don't believe this is not like an endangered species or anything, at least not here. I can't speak for all of the regions. It's just a fascinating plant. The whole reason why I even kind of have this one on my radar, because I'm walking past this thing, and I'm pretty sure I saw it last year, and I thought these were like fruits or something from the top. It didn't really stick out to me as flowers. Was just because these leaves were on top of a phylloxera that this is going to be an episode that's going to come out. It's it's already out now if you were watching this. That I did, where I wanted to show off a species of ranunculus called the Phylloxera pubescens. And what was going on that was these leaves, no flowers on the guy, just the leaves. And I was like, what is this? I thought it was something maybe in Convolvulaceae. But no, it came up when I just put it right up on INAT just to see what they had to say. And it was pretty conclusive that it was Apios americana. And then sure enough, a few weeks later, the thing bloomed. And I'm like, oh, this is a pretty cool plant. Did a little bit more reading. And yeah, it's a really cool plant. People really like this one. I guess this is another one that I posted this on one of my native plant groups, and people were like, oh, how many years did it take to flower? So I'm guessing people, or at least the native plant people, are using this as an ornamental, of which I can see why. It's a pretty freaking cool looking plant. I'll step back for you a bit. As you can see, it's kind of dominating this hedgerow here. But other than that, it's climbing up a bunch of milkweeds. But other than that, I think that's about all I got. This ended up being considerably longer than I expected, but let's be honest, that's what always happens. In any case, I'm going to get out of here because I'm just tempting fate at this point by standing in the middle of this large, relatively open meadow while there's, you know, I can audibly hear thunder in the distance. Goddamn purple loosestrife everywhere. I try not to ruin the video with it, but here at the end, goddamn purple loosestrife. Such a beautiful plant, but such a, you know, this will take over. Speaking of, you know, taking over and forming monocultures, this will do that. Lythrum salicaria, pain in the ass. Anyway, on that note, let's get out of here. I gotta go run a bunch of errands that I didn't even really process until now because I thought I was gonna come pull up to a spot, get everything, only those things, and then peel out of here. But I hope you learned a thing or two about Fabids today, or at least Fabaceae. Fabids is not inclusive of just the family Fabaceae, but rather the entire order Fabales, and maybe a couple other orders too. But that's a whole other taxonomic conversation for another day. God, I came through here last year and you could just walk. So this is, like I say, I'll put a link to the video and I talk about it, a floodplain forest. And this is what happens when you get a year with a lot of high water. There was nothing really coming up in here last year, but there's a ton of button bush in there now. And this is all red and silver maple. Maybe not even red maple, maybe mostly silver maple. Just, you know, here's the, fuck it. This is button bush right here. This one's not in bloom. Cephalanthus occidentalis, coffee family, Rubiaceae. And, yeah. No pines in there. Pines rimming the entire edge of this thing. But, yeah, this is what is meant by, you know, a nice floodplain forest. The Concord River. Is it the Concord River? One of the rivers. The well-known Massachusetts river is, right, you know, on the other side of this over there, and it spilled its banks this year because of all the rain, and this is what happens as a result of that. Pretty cool to actually see it filled up with water. We were in a pretty bad drought last year, but you know, these have to be silver maples. River maple is the other. River maple and swamp maple are two of the other common names for you. Acer saccharinum, not to be confused with Acer saccharum, the you know, sugar maple, can, you know, pretty readily tolerate this stuff. It'd be kind of cool to put on a pair of waders and go through there. I'm standing on a little causeway right now they have built up. It'd be pretty cool to actually put on a pair of waders and go through there and feel like you're down in like Florida or something, because this is this gives off bayou vibes now, doesn't it? Really cool. Anyway, I think that's actually, who am I kidding? I'll just leave it open. If I don't check back in, you'll get the gist of it, you know? It goes back pretty damn far, though. Yeah, Hibiscus mosquitos loves the floodplain, too. I didn't even see these growing over here last year. God, now that's cool. Legitimately very cool.